Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Augmenting Access to the IoT with HumanWare. This is a 30-minute breakout session. It is live. I am Jackie Delatorre. I'm with Sigh Global. And before we start, I just want to go over a couple of things. This session is being recorded, and it will be available on our Sigh Global website in just a day or two. We will have a Q&A portion of the breakout. We are going to hold questions to the end. So you may use either the Q&A box or the raise your hand feature to ask your questions. The keys to raise your hand on a Mac is Option Y, and on Windows, it's Alt plus Y. If you do raise your hand, you need to unmute yourself. And on Windows, that's the Alt A key. And on a Mac, that's Command Shift A to unmute. Okay, so we are off now and running, and that's all that I need to go over. So I would like to introduce Louis-Philippe Massy. He is the VP of Product Innovation at HumanWare, and Peter Tusik, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. Guys, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and we're absolutely thrilled to be here. So we'll run through a few things. As Jackie so eloquently introduced us, we are here to talk about the kind of our concept of how we are going to be able to augment the IoT. We'll talk about what the IoT is through HumanWare assistive technology. And my name is Peter Tusik. As Jackie said, I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships at HumanWare, and I am joined by the one and only
Louis-Philippe Massé, that's me. Sorry, I was kind of caught off guard with that one.
That's my whole point.
Yes, I'm the VP of Product Innovation at HumanWare. So happy to be there, happy to be in the first of the breakout sessions. So it's an honor to be with you, everybody.
So as we think about our agenda today, we're going to be talking briefly about what the IoT is. Of course, this is not going to be something that is old news to many of us, but certainly it's good to review what is the IoT. We'll talk about the current landscape of the IoT as it stands, challenges and limitations for folks who are blind and visually impaired, like myself, so all throughout the blind community. Talk about current solutions. What are some solutions that are available? And kind of looking at how that works. We'll talk about an ideal ecosystem. What is an ideal sort of, what does the fabric look like as we start to interact and work with these pieces in concert? We'll talk about where we stand in terms of what are we currently able to do, talking about getting to the next step. So what do we envision kind of as that future and how we can play a part in it? And then the final bullet point here that I have is limitless future. What will this mean when it all comes together? And it's not really a matter of if, this will really be a matter of when. And then we certainly, as always, will have time for question and answer. And that will be where you can certainly raise your hand and we will ask you to unmute. You can ask us a question, or you can certainly place questions in the chat. And Louis-Philippe and myself will be able to answer those questions. So we're certainly going to be moving quickly, but we definitely value input and questions.
Great. So that's my cue there. So what's the Internet of Things, the IoT? We hear this buzzword all the time without being 100% sure exactly what it means. So it's more and more everywhere around us. It's sometimes or even around us when we don't know that it's there, because all these gadgets that we're getting for Christmas and, and birthdays, like the Google, the Google, the Alexa from Amazon and the other products like this, they have all these connectivity that makes them talking to other devices. So there's this kind of mesh between the device using Bluetooth, using Wi-Fi, using other technologies to connect them. So this network is actually connecting to exchange data. It's sharing data with other devices, with providers of services, and so on and so forth. And it's even getting not just with the typical gadgets like the gadgets from Google, Amazon, and Apple, but also even in fridges. This is still something that is amazing to me, that you can have a connected refrigerator that actually can make some calls to your grocery store because you're out of milk. So this is awesome, but it's also a little scary. It's raising a lot of questions. So again, it's there. It's not something of the future. It's already there, and the real question now is that how it's gonna evolve. So it's a huge business as well, as you might guess. There's like billions of devices that are projected to be connected by 2025, and it's growing like super fast. It's growing at about a rate of 8% a year, but that's probably conservative, and it's accelerating actually. This affects a lot of all the supply chain of semiconductor chips and other devices that are used to make these connected devices. So all the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios that are used in these connected devices are getting scarce. So the IoT is not just affecting our lives and affecting how we interact with the device, but it affects the whole economy as well. So it's a big thing. And this even accelerated when the pandemic started, because people were at home. They started to purchase more of these connected devices, and the Internet of Things became even more a reality at that time. So then, of course, this raised a lot of questions, especially when we talk about why we're here. We are talking about of course, the assistive technology community and the world itself. So of course, this raised a lot of challenges and limitation for the blind community. So Peter can explain a little more about that.
Yeah, and so when we think about the challenges, one of the first pieces, the limitations and challenges for the blind community, we see that accessibility, it now has to run at a micro level. There was a time for many of us, and I am, I've been using a computer and connected devices for the better part of about 25 years or so. There was a time where your computer was the tool that you used to access the internet. Or a smartphone was the only method that you used to access the internet. So maybe you had a screen reader, you had some way to access information, and that was enough. It was accessible, it was running on your singular device. We now see that with the IoT, as we interact with all these different pieces, accessibility has to run at a micro level. It has to run on that connected fridge. It has to run on these kiosks we're encountering. It needs to then run on various standalone devices. Apps by themselves cannot solve all of our problems. So even with the singular approach, we have an iPhone that has these wonderfully accessible apps, or a smartphone, doesn't have to just be an iPhone. But what do you do when you get to a kiosk, or how do you read that digital signage that's giving you information? How are you finding those QR codes, or let alone where are those QR codes bringing you once you somehow do find them and take a good picture? What happens? So again, the challenges, as much as we move forward, we still have this wide swath of challenges we have to kind of accept and look to solve. Another struggle is you have these multiple ecosystems that are competing. Louis-Philippe mentioned Amazon and Google. You have Apple, you have Samsung and GE. All of these companies make these wonderful kind of bridges between all this technology, but they're not all working in concert. They're not congruent. Meaning, if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you learn this beautiful workflow on how to get the job done using Apple devices, when you step out into some other world, maybe in another world, could be a store down the street, that may be a different ecosystem that you're not used to. And it's a major challenge. So, whereas somebody who, and this is a similar struggle for someone who is sighted. I mean, you have many folks who say, well, Android, I don't use Android, it's so confusing, or vice versa with the iPhone. This is something that we're seeing with the IoT, is there's a lot of fragmentation. You also have a constant updating or refresh of the design and interaction, which can vary from device to device. So very hard to keep up with. This is even something, I'm about to head to the airport. And I have faith and confidence that when I open my Uber app, it's going to work the way it always has. But there are certainly times where I open a particular application and the whole interface is different. Or I go to the ATM, which is accessible, and the whole layout or the operation is different from the previous 25, 40, 80 times I've been there. So we are always kind of having this, we're on our back foot at times where pieces are updating without us being aware. The data also is being collected, but it's not always optimized to help our community. So when we think about mapping, think about autonomous vehicles and the research that is being done in autonomous vehicle research. They're mapping entire cities, entire countries, entire spaces down to the centimeter. We're not seeing that data. They're storing that data for themselves, where it would be very, very beneficial, that is, to us as blind people. So we do also struggle with the fact that the data is there in many places. There's this wonderful indoor mapping, especially for first responders. Lots of buildings have great indoor maps, but we can't access them, even though the data is there. And so we're kind of seeing that come into play. Another limitation is the ADA hasn't fully caught up to the digital space. It's fragmented, right? There's no standard, and this will change. We're certainly seeing a lot of movement here where the ADA is starting to address digital, websites and other pieces, including kiosks, but we're still struggle very much in that it's not absolutely mandated. So what tends to happen is we're not really consulted at the design of these pieces. We're consulted later as blind or visually impaired people, and the accessibility becomes bolted on or kind of brought in as an afterthought, as opposed to having a product or a piece of technology, or part of this IoT that is made accessible. There is a huge difference between the two. So this really impacts usability, because something is far more usable when it is designed accessibly versus, hey, we're just going to make this thing accessible to you. And so it's a major challenge there. To kind of continue on this challenge side, we also struggle in that when something is accessible, we don't have a lot of tutorials or demonstrations on how to use the accessibility that is here for us. We've all heard about or hear about stories of a certain train station or a certain kiosk or a certain place being very accessible, and it's this wonderful thing, but nobody knows how to use it. And there's very little, we don't have this one space to go to learn these pieces. We have wonderful organizations and folks who provide these sorts of trainings. I did see some names in the participant list of this very breakout session, which is fantastic. So there is a connected community of podcasters and other folks who have done a wonderful job over the years of demonstrating these things, but there is no one-stop shop or something that innately tells us how to access. So it's a big struggle. The kind of universal design limits us as well. You might learn how to use one ATM and you go down the street and the other ATM is completely different. Or maybe you have a kiosk, they use a certain keypad, perfect. And then you go down the street or somewhere else and it's very different. Same with smart TVs. I have one that I kind of enjoy time to time. Then I hear another one being demonstrated that sounds so great and I wish I had that one. There is no universal kind of way. And this is true across screen readers and all sorts of pieces, but it is a major struggle. So we're oftentimes using 4 different methods to complete the same task just to get the job done. Where it's not as simple as just, oh, I know how to do this. It works the same way each time and it's very consistent. So a lot of fragmented pieces there. The other side is voice dictation and commands. Even with natural language, you have to know how to talk to these things to get them to do what you want them to do. And that can be a major struggle for somebody who is older, somebody who is learning how to interact, with some of these pieces. It's still not there. So it is a limitation. We can't just talk to or ask a question always the same way we would interact with a human, even though it is the goal of this system. So someone who is newer to vision loss, or somebody who's, having various cognitive pieces and delay, is going to be highly overwhelmed by a lot of this stuff, even though the usability may be improved and the accessibility can certainly be there. So even seasoned users are going to need sort of tools and strategies to problem solve to complete a lot of these tasks that somebody who is sighted can just point and click. And I'm not saying it's always that easy, because I've certainly heard people struggle using these devices, but the odds are it's far far easier for somebody who is sighted to just get through multiple ecosystems as it is for us. The other piece, as we kind of float the various tools and pieces that continue to come online, there's a lot out there that we currently use. Everything from smartphones, smart speakers, tablets, all of these pieces will help us in terms of current solutions in the IoT. We know that we can do things like, say, Alexa, turn on living room. I'm sure I just set off a bunch of lights and TVs across the Echoverse out there, right? But we're able to control lots of devices in our immediate environment with these smart speakers. We can manipulate thermostats. We can turn things down. We can use Siri to locate informations, or lock the front door, or do all these things, as well as using smartphone apps to help us navigate the various environments. We have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful indoor mapping pieces. You think of something like Good Maps, but we think about simple apps that we use on a daily basis. I bank with Chase for a reason. Chase is fantastic here in the United States. It has a wonderful, accessible app. It even allows me to unlock the door of the branch when I want to use the ATM when the office itself is not open. So again, that is direct IoT that is fully accessible because I'm able to use my phone as this entry point. We have wonderful, integration with services like Ira, being able to book an Uber directly from the app, or being able to track various progress. So those things happen. Delivery apps allow us to kind of browse menus or aisles the same way our sighted peers do, and then have those things ready for us at the grocery store. So again, this connectivity is with us, and there are these wonderful solutions. But again, one of the pieces is that we have to know how to use it, and it's very, very fragmented. And I will meet folks who use various methods that work for them, and that's great. And there are lots of methods I use personally, and I love teaching folks how to interact with these pieces, whether it's using Shipt or Instacart or all these other ways, Uber Eats, and go down the list. But for some, that's a major struggle. And we also see that kiosk accessibility is slowly gaining traction, but even there are a lot of limitations. We have to know that we need headphones with us at all times. We were told quite a few years ago that we shouldn't ever need headphones again, wired headphones. So something that is kind of now we're blind and now we need to carry our wired headphones still. But we do have ways, think about e-wallets, ways of having contactless payment. There are lots of solutions out there that currently work in terms of what is here. So those current solutions are there, but I think we need to really look at ways of augmenting or kind of bringing forward what that all means. And for that, I'm going to talk it over, with sending this over to LP about an ideal ecosystem, and then looking at where we stand and what we think that future will look like.
Yes, thanks, Peter. And as time flies by, I'll go quicker. So what would be an ideal ecosystem? I just put here these are kind of the 10 commandments of what could be an ideal solution for the ecosystems. Of course, picking up from what Peter said, it needs to be simple, it needs to be intuitive, it needs to be easy to use, not just whether you have sight or not, but older people who are less familiar. Well, that's a stereotype, I'm sorry, but I'm talking about my parents. They're not very familiar with technology, so it needs to be simple for everyone. Privacy and security should be there by default. Nobody wants to be hacked. Nobody wants to be unsafe using these things. That's kind of a basic condition. Using AI to the best and using the improvements in natural language understanding to make these conversation a little more natural. You don't need to codify what you're going to ask Siri or Alexa to have something done. It should feel like talking to someone. It needs to be compatible with also the legacy devices that we have still around our houses and dumb device. That's a bigger challenge than it sounds like, of course, because most of these devices are not connected. So we need to figure out how can we still use these existing devices there. Cross-vendor compatibility, that's key. Again, if you are in an Apple house and you go to your friend who have a Google house, well, nothing works anymore. That can be a challenge, obviously. So hopefully maybe there's standards that could come out at some point. Future proofness, it's not really a word, but I like it. It's of course, you invest a lot of money in these platforms, in these devices, in these architectures, and when you nothing is more frustrating than putting a lot of money into having all these fancy tools to help you, to have them like obsolete in 2 or 3 years. Of course, we understand where many of us here are in the private industry, and we are for profit, but still, I think in this age of being sensitive to the ecology, to the all the challenge around us, especially with disposable gadgets, that's something that needs to be taken in consideration when we design them. Modularity. Not one solution is good for everybody. So having the ability to pick up piece from here and there from different vendors, putting them together to have the absolute best solution that suits your condition, your lifestyle and your personal preference is also something that everyone should look at. Multiple input methods, screen, voice, buttons. Obviously, not everybody is good with screens for some obvious reasons, but some people really like the tactile buttons. Some people really prefer the voice inputs. Again, giving users the chance to choose what they want. Built-in assistant to guide people. Again, it's kind of getting back to this simplicity in the how intuitive the solutions are. Help should be easy to find. It should be easy to find such that you can set up and use a device when things go wrong. And last point, it needs also to be, obviously, and that's why we're here, it needs to be compatible with the assistive technology, different methods of entering information and interacting with this device, like braille displays, hearing aids, and all of the other devices that HumanWare and other in the industries are making. So giving back the mic to Peter, let's have a quick snapshot of this ecosystem and how it's going to be in the future.
Thanks, LP. And it does come down to, and you kept talking about the multimodal access, right? And these things that I'm going to talk about in this perfect snapshot, they're not foreign to any of us who have any sort of smart devices. First, kind of piece would be, let's say we wake up and we're able to use a smart speaker to check the weather, right? But in addition, we need to also then be able to easily have access on a braille display, access on a device that is standalone, that is push button. How can we do a similar thing? It's just, we need to be able to make sure that we're including everyone in this. We need to augment access. You might use, a standalone device or a smartphone, something to confirm the colors of the clothes you're wearing, to make sure that not only they're matching, but then also when it comes to the IoT, to maybe save or give you some sort of pieces. Maybe you have a catalog of your wardrobe, and you will be able to move through and determine what pieces will match with what based off of AI or based off of various pieces that you're shopping for as you add things. So a lot of times be the big one, kind of using that same device to turn on a routine, right? Setting, again, someone who's in a wheelchair, raising those window shades, turning on your coffee pot, doing these sorts of things, not just by talking to a device, but also having another solution that may be push button to interact with the devices around you. We want to be able to navigate to our transit stop and not just get there with turn-by-turn instructions or get there with a GPS app on a phone, but then confirm that we're at the right place. Our camera should be able to be used to tell us, yes, you are at the bus stop, for the route number 60. And then we want to use our device or our camera or something to confirm that the correct bus is showing up. I live in Chicago, which I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful transit system where the buses do announce themselves usually when the door opens. A lot of places that's not true. And you're asking a driver, what bus is this? Or maybe there's another bus behind it and you don't even know it's there and it goes around and you're left in the dust. You might order an Uber. How do you know the correct car has arrived? Without right now, how do you know that without sort of having an assistant there with you, whether it's an IRA agent or somebody, who's near you who can confirm that prior to opening the door and asking the driver or using various methods. So, we want to think outside the box in these regards. We want to make sure we can not only navigate to or participate in these places, but also have visual confirmation or confirmation thanks to these camera devices. when we're on a bus or a train, we're going to monitor our travel. It's certainly something that's very important, and have access to real-time information in case pieces change. When we get off the bus or we get to our location, and this is extremely important too, we need to know where we are. Let's confirm it with our camera. What is the address I'm near? Where is the front door? Where are the crosswalks? What is the path going to look like? We've all been dropped off at a large building and we don't even know, okay, even if we know where the front door is, how do we get there? Once we get in the front door, what do we do? We want to be able to order lunch using an accessible kiosk. That certainly would include Braille access, may also include access on a smartphone app. These pieces, again, they're all doable in some shape or form, but what we don't have right now is a universal way to get all of them to work quite seamlessly. And for those of us who do, and I use, and I travel a lot, use a smartphone, I can do lots of these things on my iPhone, but I'm very fortunate. I have these skills and I'm able to do that. We have to remember that somebody who's newer to vision loss, somebody who has different abilities than our own, needs to be able and have a way to participate in this space as well. And that's certainly something that we want to broaden. And so when you think about that snapshot, it's really what we're trying to go for. I'm going to throw it over to LP and talk about kind of getting to the next step. And I know we're running low, but keep rolling.
We only have 2 minutes left, so we're gonna zip through that. So very quickly, and probably I'll skip this slide after. So of course we are getting there. We're getting in that direction. Not just HumanWare, of course, but other vendors of assistive technologies as well. One thing that I hope would come out of this is that we need to talk together, guys. We need to define what do we want as an industry, but as a community of users as well. So anyway, HumanWare, we are developing some of these tools, and we're just starting actually. And we use camera and AI to localize doors at the beginning, at the entrance of buildings, point in the direction of these doors to the users. We were going to bring, of course, color identification and barcode, and eventually more advanced feature like natural language implementation. So this is coming. There's a lot of things that will be developed by us, but not only us, of course, other companies, and that's great. I think now we should, again, meet more often and reach hands and then make sure that we work in achieving these 10 commandments that I presented before. So we just have 1 minute left, kind of. So I guess Peter, maybe we should go directly to the questions, or you want to have a closing remark?
Yeah, I think it's as you said. I mean, we really want to, as the IoT is more, someone would say invasive, but I would say pervasive in our lives. We need to be working together, and we will run these same sort of slides and pose the questions to in person at SciTech Global event in person, to technology, folks who are working in Silicon Valley, who work with these organizations, and we need cooperation across the board. We don't want to be limited to just using an APK or an SDK to get this done. We want to be able to build our own solutions and have them fully integrate with mainstream devices. We want a lot of that, multimodal access, and that's what we're very much working on with our standalone devices, which we've come out with the Stellar Trek, and being able to use standalone cameras to tell you where a door is, confirming addresses, reading text in our environment. Certainly things we can do on other devices. I'm not saying we can't, but we want to lessen that gap between those who have previous experience with connected devices and those who don't, and being able to use standalone technology in conjunction with what's already out there to improve access. So super important. Again, not like we're revolutionizing something. We're taking what's already there. We know the path, and we want to broaden that path and think outside the box. So the more feedback we get from our users, the more we're able to work with folks who work for these companies who are making these solutions. The more connections and bridges we can build, the better the opportunities will be for everyone out there today who is a user at the end of the day. So definitely want to take some questions if there are any. I did see one hand raised.
There is Well, there is a hand that were raised by Deb Marinos. I'm not sure pronouncing your name correctly. You were there since the beginning of the chat.
Your hand went up right away. So you were
Yeah,
itching
exactly.
for a question.
If you want, I'm going to allow you to talk. And if you want to ask your question, please do so.
And if you don't have a question, that is totally fine as well. We won't be offended. But certainly if you'd like to raise your hand and ask us a question, that would be wonderful. If not, we hope you enjoyed this and really, gets you thinking about the IoT and the wildness. It's kind of a, of integrating and marrying all of these different technologies that surround us, and thinking outside the box and being creative as to how we can make sure everybody gets on board, and we can augment what is out there with not only hardware but also software. How can we be improving and working together to make all of these things possible?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Deb. Maybe you're still muted. I just sent you a unmute request. I'm not sure if it's working on your side for that, or if you still.
It's all right. We'll do a going
question.
once.
Yeah,
Deb, we are going once, going
Hi,
twice.
let me just jump in. If she is on Windows, she can hit Alt A to unmute, or if she's on a Mac, Command Shift A
That's
to
right.
unmute.
If you're on the iPhone, it's in the corner. But
you could also ask your question
put it
in the
about the
chat,
chat
as well.
window, and we can even answer some of the question offline. We'll find a way to do that.
Absolutely. Anyone else, LP?
Yes, there's another question. Edward Louis. So I'm gonna allow you to talk, and you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes,
welcome.
I heard there's a new protocol called Matter accessories. Would that be part of the thing in the blind community in the future, like with IoT devices?
Can you rephrase what you heard? There is you're kind of muffled.
There was a protocol called Matter accessories.
I do not know. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what.
It's going to be like cross platform compatibility with things.
You are so. Do you know what our buddy Edward is asking here? LP.
I'm
sorry.
No, I also have
you are
trouble
very muffled,
understanding your
but-
voice.
Yeah, and
Edward,
I
I'm
know
very
you're
sorry.
saying there's a protocol, and I think you're saying there is a protocol for
compatibility with various types of devices like Alexa and Google Home simultaneously.
Okay.
It's called Matter.
Matter. Oh,
Matter.
the
Okay,
Matter
got
protocol.
it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. So this will be absolutely there is a push for, sorry about that. It was you were just super muffled. The Matter being the ability to have this universal kind of in parallel access to these multiple smart speakers or devices. That's exactly what we want. We want to see this uniting so that people are not in these walled gardens as it's been coined so frequently. We want, and the future of this will be, we need to have multiple devices, various platforms working together as they already do, but having that be kind of incongruent. So yes, this is something we'd love to tap into as well from a hardware standpoint, to be able to interface directly with the various ecosystems. So certainly that is certainly on our radar. Sorry about that, Edward.
Good. Do we have time for another question, Jackie, or we should take them offline?
Yeah, I think the ones on the chat you might want to take offline, because we want to I'm sorry here, I'm in the sun here. Let me move over here. Yeah, so I think it's best that we wrap this up for today, but we want to thank our host, Louis Philippe and Peter. Thank you so much for participating and doing this breakout for us. It will be on demand on our SciTech Global site in a few days. And right now we'd like you to return to the main site and see what is next on the main stage. So thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot for everybody. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you to all for being here, and please enjoy this absolutely awesome 2 days of virtual events. And we hope everyone will have a fantastic virtual meetup and hopefully see everyone in person sooner than later. We'll be at a table or a booth or a conference near you.
Great.